I don't know. Drugs are out, sex is out, politics are out. Everything is on hold. I mean, we definitely need something new. I just keep waiting for some new voice to come out of somewhere and just say, hey, wait a second, what is wrong with this picture? Just take a look around.
The Sock Jig Sneaker Podcast. We'll explain it to you in NBA terms. Welcome to episode 71 of the Sock Jig Sneaker Podcast. I'm your host, Sock Jig. You can follow me on Twitter at SockJig and on Instagram as well. How's it going? How's your summer been? I know I haven't touched on any recent sneaker topics in a while because I've also been enjoying my summer, but I've also been working on this evergreen series called How to Release a Collab Sneaker. This series I honestly started working on almost a year ago. Originally, part 1 and part 2 were supposed to be one single episode, but the outline kept growing and growing, so I split it up. So all of this is from various notes I've collected over the years and a few points I may have brought up in previous episodes, but the point here is to bring it all together. So I hope sneakerheads find it informative on what goes on the other side of the fence, on the collaborator side. And I also hope eventually a collaborator who's getting their first sneaker finds it one day and it gives them some idea of what's in store for them. Either way, I'm really proud of this series. I worked really hard on it. It's the type of sneaker content that is quite different from other sneaker podcasts. And so I really appreciate that you take the time to listen to this podcast and that it makes the rotation cut. You can also support me by buying SockJig socks on shop.sockjig.com. I have black and yellow The Game is the Game socks available, and the final handful of OG cream SockJig socks also available. September's around the corner. Throw out some old socks and buy some new socks. SockJig socks are premium quality and they have a nice dry fit like quality, so they wear pretty good in the summer. So shop.sockjig.com. And with that, let's go with the show. The premise of this episode is that you are an owner of a shop that's getting its first Nike collab, a collab that you can drop both in-store and online. I've chosen a Nike Dunk SB for this case study, which of course means that you're a skate shop. So the name of your store is Ice Age Skate. The location is in San Francisco. You have a retail brick and mortar skate shop. You're celebrating 25 years, and that's why Nike SB has given you a Dunk SB to release. And let's say in your store, you have employees, you have a store manager, you have a e-commerce guy that also does Google AdSense and marketing and social media. And say you have a couple retail employees, just 5 employees in total. So in this scenario, you are getting 10,000 pairs, which you get to release both in-store and online. And let's say worldwide, the stock is 15,000 pairs, which means there's 5,000 left. And half of that is going to Sneakers app and the other half is going to skate shops worldwide. And they're all getting like a size run or something. So, this is probably not exactly an accurate scenario for a skate shop for Nike SB. A skate shop probably wouldn't get 10,000 pairs. A more realistic scenario might be a few thousand pairs. The one notable exception was Born and Raised, and that was because Sponto died, RIP Sponto. And so for that release, then Nike SB just decided to send all the pairs to Born and Raised, and they released it how they see fit. So in this scenario, I'm doing 10,000 pairs simply because of math. It's easier for numbers-wise, for comprehension as you're listening to this episode. At the end, we can just divide and give a more realistic scenario. So we can divide by 2 and that's 5,000 pairs. Or we'll divide by 4 and get 2,500 pairs to give those kind of numbers. And so that's probably a more accurate number. But for the rest of the scenario for this case study, we're saying we got 10,000 pairs. The assumption is that Nike's the one determining those stock numbers and determines how much a store is getting. The store itself probably doesn't have that much say in it. Also, I picked a Nike SB as a case study example because an SB collab is going to be hype. It's going to have demand. It's going to have the people wanting it. And there's not that much else right now that would drive that same kind of demand. And a case study of a store getting like a Nike Air Humara, like, Undefeated did earlier this year, that's not exactly that exciting either. So the point of this was to show something that is hyped, that is in demand, that people want. And then show how a small to medium-sized shop will release a shoe like this, because bigger stores have resources. They might have more of a marketing budget or even get some sort of budget from Nike or Jordan. And we already know what it takes for the Whitaker Group to do a release, and we kind of lived through a bunch of them. And We've seen James Whitner talk about this in interviews. So the premise is you're not James Whitner, you're not Kith, you're not undefeated, you're not getting 30,000 pairs, you're not getting 70,000 pairs. Realistically, you're getting like 2,500 pairs, but I'm just saying 10K just for easier rounder numbers. Also, you're not some sort of singer or entertainer or artist that already has a following worldwide. You are a local store and you're known in the skate community, you're known among sneakerheads, and you have a real brick and mortar retail store, which is going to be part of the release. And like I said, you've been established for the last 25 years. So in this case study, we're basically going to explore what it takes to have this kind of hyped release. How much does it cost? How much money will you make? Should you backdoor to make some more money? Should you try to please everyone? Can you even please everyone? Also at the end, I'll do like a what if scenario, like what if something goes wrong, or what if the sneaker's a brick, or it doesn't sell out, things like that. But once again, I'm laying this out as if you, the listener, are a retailer and not a consumer, not a customer. And, that's kind of the point of this whole thing. And I'm hoping it provides more insight into why drops are the way they are and why they're always a little bit messy, no matter what they try to do or how they try to release. And we'll also answer questions along the way, like why are our shipping costs so high, or why doesn't it ship immediately? So some of this is cobbled together from people that I've spoken to who are in the industry and have done a lot of this, but honestly, everything else I'm kind of pieced together. And as we go, I will say, I don't know what the cost of this. I will lay out the assumptions that I'm making. And my usual disclaimer is that I'm not in the sneaker industry. I haven't done these kind of drops. I might miss something here or there, but overall, I'm pretty confident with the level of information that I'm putting out there, and it's meant to be at a high level. And honestly, my track record on being on point on this kind of stuff speaks for itself. And one metaphor I did get from an insider was think of it like you're planning a wedding. You have this big happy event. You want to take care of friends and family. You need to coordinate multiple vendors. You have issues with some friends and family. You have guests arriving and you want to please them all. But you're also putting on a big event and also paying for it up front, but counting on the cash envelopes at the end of the wedding to help pay for it all. So I think that metaphor is pretty good. So just keep that in mind as we're going through the episode. But overall, the premise is simple. You're the owner of a small shop. You're getting 10,000 pairs of a hyped Nike sneaker, and this is what it'll take for you to release it. In part one of this series, I said that you have to start with the why, that you have to start with the primary purpose for your collaboration. And in this case, for Ice Age Skate, we've determined the primary purpose for this collaboration is to highlight and celebrate our store for 25 years. And also, we want to make money and we want to support, yourself and your employees. And that's where your values for this release will come from. Those values support your why. Your values are going to be brand awareness, making money, and you might also value other things like giving customers a good experience. And we'll get to that part with the release strategy. But these are the things that you have to think of as you plan the sneaker from the very beginning. Do you want to tell your store story or do you want to tell a different story? So in this case, we want to tell the store story. The store's name is Ice Age Skate. And say a while back, you went to Nike headquarters and worked with a designer and you came up with a sneaker that's, primarily all white to indicate, snow. And it's got shades of blue, like a glacier on the panels, and it's got an icy blue sole. Honestly, the details don't exactly matter. All that matters is that the shoe is fire and it'll be hyped. And since it's a Nike Dunk SB, so it'll have a retail price of $130 US, and we'll assume that the wholesale price is 50% of that. So wholesale price is $65. But before all that, we kind of have to go to the business school of collab sneakers. And a lot of this I just got from my discussion with Joe Freshgoods on this very podcast on episode 55. And we were talking about the scenarios that collaborators are in with brands. So it's around the 41-minute mark of that episode if you want to give a listen. But at one point, Joe asked me a hypothetical question. He goes, say you're getting a sneaker. He goes, option one is that you get a $200,000 design fee. There's a $50,000 marketing budget. And you get 25 shoes for friends and family. That's it. Nothing else. All the rest of the release is handled and you don't get to release it on your own. And option two is there's no design fee. You get 100,000 marketing, but you have to buy all the shoes at a wholesale price from the sneaker brand that you get to release. So in that episode, Joe asked me what option would I take? I said I would bet on myself and take option 2, and Joe agreed, and that's what Joe does. And so for this release, that's what we're going to do. I'll make a decision point. I'll play this music whenever we make an important decision. Okay, so we're taking option 2. We're betting on ourselves. We have a team. We have employees. And the other assumption we're going to make is that Nike's going to give us $20,000 in a marketing budget. Now, I have no idea how accurate this number is or if it's a commonplace or what, but it doesn't matter. The number that they're going to give us is $20,000. We have 10,000 pairs, $65 wholesale price. That's $650,000 that we owe for these sneakers. So every time that there's a cost, I'm going to play this sound. That's $650K that we owe Nike. So the first question is, when do you have to pay Nike? Upfront or after? And in the wedding metaphor, I said that pretend you're throwing a wedding and you're going to pay for it all with the money that you get from your guests at the end. So that's what we're doing. We're throwing a wedding. People are going to pay us for the sneakers, and then we're going to pay the bill with that money that we got for those sneakers. So our assumption here is that we're going to pay for this big invoice after. Upfront, Nike's going to give us $20,000. I mentioned that I'll do what ifs, but a good what if here is to think about is like, what if you had to pay it upfront? As a store owner of a small shop, can you pay Nike $650,000? All around you, stores are closing. So who's got $650,000 sitting around? And then the other what if is like, what if it doesn't sell out? What if the brand wants to give you some new silhouette that no one likes, and now you paid a big invoice for it and it didn't sell out, and you might not ever financially recover from that. So that, is the first kind of insight that we have. This is exactly why smaller shops don't get 10,000 pairs to release themselves. It costs a lot of money, the money that they don't have. And the brands know what the collaborators can afford and are not going to come to them and give them 60,000 if they only have a small shop. So instead of 10,000 pairs, say we divide by 5, you're only getting 2,000 pairs. A wholesale price for 2,000 pairs at $65 is $130K. So cobbling together $130K might be a little bit easier, and that's why we see releases where there's only 1,000 or 2,000 pairs, maybe even less, maybe only 500 pairs. And as a sneakerhead trying to get one of those pairs, it's obviously going to be 10 times harder trying to get a hype sneaker at 1,000 pairs stock than it would be if there was 10,000 pairs. The numbers don't lie, and as a sneakerhead trying to cop one of them, it spells disaster for you. But back to our hypothetical scenario, we have 10,000 pairs, the shoe is fire. We have our values that we want to highlight the store, we want to make money. And if we are assured that the shoes are going to sell out, then what else can we get out of this release? So the first obvious choice is that we also should be making merch. And merch is one of those things where if you do it right, you can make pretty good money at it. And so as a skate shop owner, we're going to assume that you already have experience with this, you already make shop tees, and a decision point comes up is, do you want Nike to handle it? Do you want Nike to make the tees? And anything with a swoosh, Nike will make. And, maybe the exception was Travis Scott once, or maybe even these MLB Fanatics jerseys and stuff. But overall, Nike only puts their swoosh and stuff on their own product. And if Nike is going to make the t-shirts for you, you will most likely make less money off it. So another decision point here, there will be merch. You'll make it yourself. So the merch won't say Nike or have a swoosh on it. It'll just be your logo or Abominable Snowman mascot or whatever. And it'll be kind of the colors of the shoe. And doing merch like this, it supports your purpose. It supports your why, that you're trying to highlight your store and you're trying to make money. So to recap this whole segment, Nike has determined 10,000 stock for you. They're giving you $20K upfront for marketing. You have a $650,000 invoice that you have to pay at the end. So let's come up with a release plan and release strategy. So in our pretend scenario, timeline-wise, you don't have the sneakers in hand yet. They're still in production. So you have this time to come up with a release strategy. So how I'm going to break it down is you got a marketing plan where we'll determine the promo materials and campaigns and all that stuff. A drop plan, that is like how exactly are you going to drop? Is it going to be a raffle, in-store, online, friends and family? And a key part being what is going to be the stock allocation for each. And in our wedding metaphor, this is a part where you're thinking about what you want the wedding to look like. And you're evaluating the vendors and you're trying to just put the right pieces in place. You're planning it all, right? And the key part with wedding planning is you got to think about costs and coordination and all that stuff. So that's essentially what we're doing with this sneaker that we're fake releasing. So for a marketing plan, I'm not going to go into every single detail about every single thing that you must do. I'm just going to list off a few things that I thought for you to consider. But as I mentioned in part 1 of this series is you got to remember the why, that this drop is not entirely about a sneaker release. It's more of a vehicle to get your skate shop over, to get your brand awareness out there, and of course to make money. So when trying to think of ad campaigns, it's like, what's the story going to be for the editorials or videos that supports your why, that supports your store? And so if it's your first sneaker, your first collab sneaker, you probably have had a lot of ideas over the years. Just like how bands are with their first album, they've spent a lifetime crafting these hits. And then for a second album, it's a little hit and miss for the bands. And the same thing can happen with sneakers sometimes. And in our case, we're only releasing one sneaker, so we're not thinking about that, but just something to consider for people like Whitaker Group or Union or Joe Fresh Goods, where they're on their like 6th or 7th or more sneaker. And so coming up with ideas on that is a lot harder. So one thing I touched on earlier is costs. Honestly, don't know what the costs are for everything. So I'm not going to do like an exact spreadsheet of this is how much it costs, because I'll be just making up numbers at that point. I'm kind of a hands-off podcast host only and not actually releasing a sneaker. But, shit be costing money. You could put that in the papers. The stuff costs money. And in our fake scenario, Nike gave us $20K marketing budget. So obviously we'll be using that money first and, trying to stay under budget. So in anything, cool ideas are going to cost money. And so in our fake scenario, we're called Ice Age. So you might have an idea where we set up skate ramps on the slopes of Lake Tahoe in the winter. And that sounds great. It also sounds very expensive. So let's think of a more budget-friendly version of an ad campaign that we could do. So say you have a bunch of skaters doing tricks on Market Street in San Francisco, and various people are stopping to look and going, damn, that was ice cold. There you go. That's our ad campaign. It's very cheesy, yes, but the important part is it's cheap. You could just take some street photos and Photoshop in some frost, and you can make videos of your skate team and just people reacting to a trick that they just saw and just edit it all together. But back to costs, even photography alone, you got to pay a photographer, you got to pay models or the skate people, you got to pay for editing and editorials and teaser images, in-store display, actual product shots. There's a lot of cost when it comes to photography. Same with video. You need a lot of people to shoot a professional looking video. The director, videographer, editor, sound, actors, models, whatever you're thinking about. Catering, you got to feed these people if you're spending a day on this. But one sidebar I wanted to bring up was location clearance. If you're shooting a video in a specific location, you of course need clearance for city permits and things like that. But depending on the city, you also need permission from the streets. And just to be clear, I mean gangs. And look, I'm a Canadian dad, so this is not exactly my world. All I know is what I hear from people that I know or from rap music. And what I know is that in some cities, you need clearance. You just can't pull up to Slauson and Crenshaw Boulevard and start shooting a movie in LA. You're not Kendrick Lamar. And I'm sure even Kendrick Lamar cleared that with a lot of people. In Chicago, you can't just have an event in Garfield Park and just have a city permit in your hand. You got to talk to a bit more people than that. You got to talk to a representative. And what happens there, I don't know. Pay them off, give them sneakers. I'm just a podcaster. What I know is that you need to talk to someone about that kind of stuff. But even before that is, do you know who to talk to? Do you know someone who knows someone on who to talk to? And this is why for my case study, I picked San Francisco and not New York or Los Angeles. It's obviously West Coast and areas of West Coast are still affiliated. But that's why I said we're going to film on Market Street in San Francisco in the financial district in front of a bunch of tech bros in front of Phil's Coffee. You don't need permission from the Patagonia sweater vest gang there. Anyways, that was my sidebar. But back to marketing stuff, you also need a social media plan. How do you plan on talking about this release online? Are you going to post teasers and videos? And, you have an employee to cover social media for you, but is that like all you're going to do? You're just going to do traditional posts and emails? Are you going to do anything that kind of caters to the format? Anything extra? Something social media driven and not, just traditional? If you have those ideas, you better put them in place right now. Other stuff, interviews with sneaker media, the shoes market themselves, but this is your big shot to put your best foot forward and put your store on the map. So you got to sell yourself, you got to sell your story, you got to sell your store story. You got to talk to sneaker media and do podcasts and maybe talk to Hypebeast or High Snobiety or whoever is out there that wants to talk to you. You gotta at least plan that out and think about it. Seating is another thing you gotta think about. Seating and friends and family might go hand in hand, maybe not. Maybe there's some peers in other skate shops that you gotta take care of. You gotta take care of the manager at the Supreme store. Or say you got a DM from DJ Clark Kent. He wants a shoe. You don't know anything about DJ Clark Kent, but do you give him a shoe? Will he post it on his Instagram and that's marketing for you? Maybe, I just picked a random name, but it could be anyone. It could be a lot of people asking for this kind of stuff. So some of this is clearly marketing, but I'm going to talk about it more in how to handle friends and family releases. A release party. Are you going to have a party? Is there going to be after hours at the store? Is there going to be catering and alcohol and a DJ? Do you need a liquor license? There's so many other things that you can also do with your marketing plan. It's just, your limit is your imagination and your budget. Like I said, this is not meant to be a comprehensive marketing plan. It's just meant to show you that you got to start planning a lot of things and you might not be an expert in a lot of these things. And so you got to figure out, who do I talk to? Who can help out? A drop plan is how are you going to release a sneaker? It's in-store, friends and family, and online are the three categories that I've created. And then you got to determine what the stock allocation is going to be for each. So we'll start with in-store. In-store, we're going to do an in-store raffle only because Nike's rules say you can't do first come, first serve on super hype releases. It has to be a raffle. I think most SB shops do this anyway when there's a high level of hype so that there's no, incident outside your store. And so the types of raffle that you can do is an in-store only raffle where people walk in and enter somehow on an iPad, or an online one where it's Instagram comments or just an online Google form. So cue the music. Decision point. We're going to do an in-store raffle only. We're just going to keep it obvious and simple. It rewards the local community, gives you more control. Because the level of hype, I think Born and Raised did this as well too, where all pairs will be shipped. There's nothing in store. You don't want someone smashing through the store window to steal the shoes. So you got to communicate that as well in the raffle. But when you have people come into the store, you have more chance to sell them items and merch and things like that. I think Nike rules make it so you can't tie buying merch with a raffle, but how many eyes are going to be watching at this point? I don't know. All that kind of stuff, it's up to you to decide how you want to do that kind of stuff. But our plan for the in-store raffle release is it's going to be one day only. It's got a dedicated start and end time. You're going to have to come up with a lineup plan. You got to talk to neighbors, your other business neighbors. Some costs for this, some security you got to probably hire for the lineup to keep things orderly. Because what if something goes wrong and you didn't think of this beforehand and now you got chaos outside your store? You're going to get criticized for things that you didn't think of. So you got to start thinking about this kind of stuff. So in-store raffle, there's different ways to do this. Filling out some sort of Google form that's in-store only is going to be pretty time consuming. You're going to probably need multiple iPads. It's pretty slow, people entering their info. So I think Livestock does this. So this is the plan that I've come up with. You got these pre-printed codes. It has a QR code on it, which is a link to a Google form. But on that pre-printed card is a code that they have to enter in that Google form as well. So people walk into the store, they get a card, they go home and they fill out the entry. And so there's going to be a lineup to get these cards, but at least you can get people in and out fast. But there might also be people who are looping to get multiple cards. So, any plan that you come up with is going to have some sort of either bottlenecks or areas where you're going to have to just live with it. And this might be it for the card. And you can deal with it later in terms of filtering that kind of stuff out. A cost here is you got to pre-print these cards, or you can do it yourself. You got to download a bunch of codes, print them, cut them with those big paper trimmer things, or just use Vistaprint or something. And then how many do you need? Do you need a few thousand? How many people do you expect are coming to the store? You have 10,000 sneakers, so you're going to probably need several thousand. And what if you run out? What if a whole bunch of people come to the store? So same kind of thing where people are going to be upset if you didn't think about this. So you most likely have to print extra. And I mentioned the pain points. And once the raffle is done, you have to have a way to review the entries. You have to have a list of codes that were given out. Google form lets you export to a spreadsheet. And then you got to remove duplicates and duplicate emails and addresses and duplicate codes as well too. I'm sure people will try entering multiple times with the code. And so Do you have enough spreadsheet expertise to do this kind of stuff? Or does someone on your staff know how to do this stuff? And same with determining winners. Are you doing it by random? Are you cross-referencing with a VIP list? Are there names on there that you're going to cherry pick? But overall, it's probably not a perfect plan, but this just kind of shows you that coming up with any kind of plan, that there is going to be some hard decisions, some things you just can't get right. And you might get criticized for things that you didn't properly think through. So that's what we're kind of doing with this exercise, is trying to think through as much as we can. So I mentioned friends and family and VIP list, and you're going to be dealing with a lot of DMs and messages from random people and acquaintances that you've known over the years. Maybe it's best to create like a Notes app note, and just the contents of the note you can just copy paste to anyone that just says, "Sorry, man, we ask that you please bear with us. A lot going on right now." You obviously don't want to be a dick to people that you know, but you also can't probably reply to every single message like this that you're going to get. So maybe it's better not even to check your DMs. But overall, you're going to have friends and family, and you're going to take care of your friends and your best customers. When it comes to your friends, I'm sure you know exactly who to take care of and who not to. So for a VIP, like I mentioned earlier, do you have an active email list of VIPs? And this could be online and in-store. Who are your best online customers? The ones that have made a ton of online orders over the years. It might not be people you've talked to or conversed with or an email or anything. It's just someone who consistently buys from you all the time. And in-store, it's like, who comes into the store, shoots the shit? Like, do you keep track of these people? And then if you want to give them sneakers, how are you going to do it? You're going to invoice like one by one. So because that sounds painful, and because we saw how Born and Raised had basically a friends and family site that was limited to a VIP list. So we're going to talk to Shopify on how we could do something like that. And in our store, in our case study scenario here, we're already using Shopify for the in-store point of sale service and our online store as well too. So it makes sense to hit up your customer rep and see what they offer in terms of online public drops and also friends and family VIP drops. But even for online drops, there isn't an online drop. It's just a raffle. So that's the first question is, are we going to do a public raffle, or are we going to do an actual online drop? With raffles, not many are rolling their own anymore. EQL has really changed the game in the last like year and a half, 2 years for that. So before, there was a lot of work setting that up and getting it wrong. And I did actually see someone get it wrong recently with Nina Chanel. And so EQL is in that position where like, we'll solve this problem for you. But as I mentioned in previous episodes, the issue there is you got to give them a cut. So it goes back to what your values are. Do you have money to spare? Do you want them to take a cut? Is what they bring to the table of value for you? Obviously, a lot of things go into this decision, as we covered in part 1 of this series, like how much stock you have and how much help and support you need. But in our scenario, I've laid it out such that the stock is high and we have a support system and we have the ability to do an online release. And so if you're doing an online drop, you're going to need bot protection and, for fairness or for the theatrical appearance of fairness. Even if the bot protection is a little bit shaky these days, there's not enough releases really to determine exactly what's going on. But Shopify is still the best in-market solution. You're not going to go to Big Cartel or Squarespace to do this. And so I think I mentioned this on Twitter as well once, that people hate on Shopify because bots are clearing stock or it's impossible to hit. But there really is no other solution. There is no other competitor that does anything worthwhile. There were some European sites and people like those sites because they had bypasses for it. Just like the Qt stuff, people have bypasses for it. But Shopify, like it or not, has been the stewards of online drops for the last like 10 plus years or so. And I say that just because without them, other sites just can't handle the traffic. It would just be sites that are just down the whole time. So a decision point here, we're going to do an online drop with Shopify Plus. The cost is what, like $2,000 something a month plus 2.9%, something like that is what they take. I don't know if you have to buy it for a year or if you can just do it for a 1 month, one drop only kind of thing. That's, obviously you can set up a sales call with them. But one of the features is you can set up multiple sites, and this includes the bot protection, domain change sites that you see on drops. but also the friends and family releases and friends and family only site. You can set up all these different stores and sites all as part of this plan. So this will help take care of friends and family. And that's kind of what Born and Raised did and Jay Balvin did. And even Action Bronson has been setting up all these sites and did a friends and family only release where only certain people could check out. So you got to determine who's going to be on that list. And this is going to be your friends, your employees, your friends of friends, your employees' friends, your best customers, your most vocal customers, whoever you cherry picked, all that can be taken care of by this one friends and family public site drop. If someone wants in, they can just be added to this list and you're not going to have to do these single invoices. So I know I said there's 3 types of drops. There's in-store, raffle, there's the online drop, and then there's also the friends and family VIP drop. But there's really a 4th type of drop, if you can call it that, which is backdooring. Is backdooring going to be part of your release plan? Is it the right thing to do morally? Probably not. Is it going to be the right thing to do financially? Possibly. Can it be done low-key without a lot of people knowing about it? Probably not. Everyone likes to flex these days. And if it does come out that a whole bunch of stock was backdoored, will it hurt me? Will it hurt the store? Will it hurt financially? Will it hurt my business? Will it affect my standing with the community, with customers, with Nike, with everyone? I mean, who are some examples that have been hurt by this? Trophy Room? Did he really get hurt by this? Sort of, but he's still the son of Jordan and still got releases. So most likely, no, it won't hurt you that bad. You just can't flaunt it in people's faces. So let's look at it financially. How much money is there to be made going straight and legit versus backdooring a little bit? Before, all you had was the marketing budget from Nike and you've been paying for things out of pocket. And maybe you've been borrowing from your line of credit, but with backdooring, you would get cash in hand. You're not going to get fraud or chargebacks, and there's not going to be customer service risks with that kind of stuff. You get cash in hand. In our wedding metaphor, it's like, what if some guest just gave you your wedding present weeks before and they were way more generous than your usual guests? And they just said, here, take this. I mean, it'd be an insult to refuse that, wouldn't it? I guess I'm kind of Mr. Brightsiding backdooring here, but let's assess it. Let's see what value there is from backdooring here and what are the options. One thing to be clear is a backdoor price is not usually the current resale price. So if a shoe sells for $500 resale, maybe the backdoor price is $300, maybe it's $350. It's not exactly my world, but I know that, everyone's got to wet their beak and take a cut. So you could try selling that stuff on StockX and GOAT yourself or get your employees to do it. It's a bit more riskier to do that. You don't want to get caught and stuff like that. I'm sure it happens a lot, but less risky, I guess, is just selling a large number to known bulk resellers. And ideally, if you deal with fewer of them and they take more, you got less people to deal with and you get more money. So I'm going to give a couple of made up scenarios where we can do some backdooring. But the first one is going to be where we do no backdooring. It's all 100% retail. We'll go through how much money we'll make on that option just so we have a baseline. So the second option will be we'll do some light backdooring, just a little sprinkle of backdooring. And then we'll take it up a notch and do a little bit more backdooring. And then we'll look at like a heavier backdooring and even going full trophy room mode and doing as much backdooring as you possibly can. And we'll go through the numbers and we'll see how much of a difference a little sprinkling makes and a lot of backdooring makes. So one thing to keep in mind, I'm no accountant. I'll try to keep the financial terms as simple as possible. Some parts I might just kind of skim over and just give you the final number based on the calculation. So option 1, 100% retail, absolutely no backdooring. We have 10,000 sneakers. Our wholesale cost is $650,000. And at $130 retail, if we sold them all, the revenue is $1.3 million. So subtract the two, the gross profit there is $650,000. Gross profit there is just a subtraction of 1.3 million minus 650,000, which is your wholesale cost of goods. And so from that gross profit of $650,000 is where you would then do a further subtraction for all your operating expenses and labor and everything else. But I'm not going to worry about that. I'm just going to say your gross profit is $650,000 in this scenario. And the gross profit percentage is 50%. So whatever your wholesale cost is, that's what your profit is going to be because it's 50%. Does that make sense? Hopefully it makes sense. So option 2, we're going to sell 80% of the sneakers at retail price and 20% of them we're going to backdoor at $200 backdoor price, which is low for backdoor considering retail is only $130. And I know in a more realistic scenario, it's probably different per size, but we're just going to make it $200 for simplicity's sake. So if we sell 80% of our stock at retail price, that's 8,000 pairs. So 8,000 times $65 is $520,000, which is our wholesale cost of goods, but is also going to be our gross profit. So $520,000 is what you need to know is the money you make if you sell 80% of your stock at retail price. But if you backdoor 20% of that stock, your cost of goods was still the same, but now you're making it $200 per pair. So in this scenario, the calculation comes out, you just made $270,000 gross profit from 20% of your stock. Whereas from 80% of the stock, you made $520,000. So just by backdooring 20% of them for $200, you made a gross profit of $790,000. That's a difference of $140,000. I know I'm throwing a lot of numbers at you, but that's all you need to know really is a difference of $140,000 just by backdooring 20% of them at a pretty low price. And this is exactly why backdooring happens, because really what's happening is that extra money is sustaining everything else that I've been talking about in this episode, all the costs that I've been talking about. But as I said, a backdoor price of $200 might not be realistic if we're forecasting the resale price of these sneakers to be $500. So let's say we're going to backdoor 20% of our sneakers for $300 each. Going through the same scenario, selling 80% at retail and 20% at backdoor price of $300, using the exact same calculations, you would make a total gross profit of $990,000. Compare that to everything 100% fair, you would make $650,000. That's a difference of $340,000 just for backdooring 20% of your sneakers. That is a huge, huge difference. So let's go even greedier for scenario's sake. You know, we got the dollar signs in our eyes at this point now. We're going to sell only 50% of our sneakers at retail and 50% are going out the back door at $350. So using the same calculations, 50% of our stock is going to be sold at a regular retail price. From that, we'll be making $325,000, the half of the $650. And the other half is going to be backdoored. So 5,000 pairs are going to be sold at $350 each. Our cost of goods is still the same for those backdoored pairs. And from that, the gross profit is going to be $1.425 million. So add those two together, the gross profit total is $1.75 million. Versus if you sold them all at retail, you would have made $650,000. That's a difference of $1.1 million. Nike's not going to write you a check for $1.1 million. They wrote you a check for $20,000 and you owe them the wholesale price of $650 at the end of the day. So the last one I said was, let's go full trophy room mode. We're going to backdoor all of our stock. 100% of our stock is going out the back door. And we're going to sell it at that $350 greedy price. So 10,000 times $350, that's $3.5 million. You subtract the $650K wholesale price that you got to pay Nike, your gross profit is 2.85 mil, which you can then take to Vegas and bet on the Kansas City Chiefs to win the Super Bowl, allegedly. So to recap this all, in case I lost you in any of that math stuff, if you do not backdoor, you're going to make $650K. If you backdoor 20% at $200 backdoor price, you make $790K. If you backdoor 20% of the stock at $300 backdoor price, you make $990K. If you backdoor 50% at $350, you make $1.75 million. Just shows you that these numbers are a big difference from $650K. But as a sneakerhead looking at releases from the outside, you can say, of course, releases should be fair. People should do the right things. Stores should sell at retail price. There should be no backdooring at all. But on the retailer side, I just showed you how the math escalates really quickly. The money that you can potentially make escalates really quickly compared to the costs that are also escalating really quickly. And that's why the wedding metaphor is useful, because in the middle of this big expensive celebration that you're trying to put on, if you all of a sudden get a cash infusement, wouldn't you use it? Most people probably would. I'm not saying it's right. I'm saying I understand. So it all depends on what I said in part 1. What are your values? What do you care about? But back to our scenario. We're Ice Age Skate. We have this big release coming up, and we got to decide, are we going to backdoor stock? Are we going to backdoor a little bit, or are we going to backdoor a lot? And, we're decent, honest people. We're not greedy. But we also have to pay $650,000, which is already taking a hit on my line of credit at these current interest rates. So we're gonna backdoor. Let's go with 20% of our stock at $300 backdoor price. We still get 80% of our stock left to sell at retail. So we're not exactly being super greedy. We're, sprinkling it in. And we're also not trying to do any favors for resellers, selling it to them for $200. So we're trying to get as much money from them as we can. So our final allocation, we've decided 20%, 2,000 pairs are going to be backdoored at $300. That leaves 8,000 pairs to be sold in-store raffle, the online drop, and our friends and family VIP. And we got to decide the stock allocation for that as well too. Let's just say we do 40, 40, 20. 40% for online, 40% for in-store raffle, and 20% for friends and family. I think that adds up to 100%. Either way, we have 8,000 pairs that we got to deal with. 40% of 8,000 pairs is 3,200 pairs for the online drop, and same 40% for the in-store raffle. That leaves 20% for friends and family VIP, which is 1,600 pairs. Maybe that's not enough. Maybe that's too much. Whatever it is, you can tweak those numbers. But what it really illustrates is that we just went from 10,000 pairs total that we have to only dropping 3,200 online. And remember, 10,000 pairs is not exactly accurate. We're just doing that for easy math. So if we divide by 4, that's 2,500 pairs total. That would leave, using this formula, 800 pairs for online. If we divide by 5 of 2,000 pairs total stock, that will leave 640 pairs for online drop. And that's kind of a more realistic number of what happens with these online drops, where there's a big release, but very few, less than 1,000, actually make it online. And all this stuff, you can tweak the percentages. You can say you want 30% for friends and family and 20% for online. I think Born and Raised, when they did the release, a huge chunk of it went to the friends and family best customers VIP release. And then a big chunk of it went out the back door, allegedly. And then whatever else was left for online, which is mostly small sizes. So we have a release plan and a release strategy. Now you got to figure out the logistics and fulfillment. And really, this is just a fancy way of saying shipping and handling. Where are the sneakers going to be stored? We already said we're not going to put them in your store to prevent break-ins. So where else is there? Your basement? Probably not your basement. Probably can't handle 10K pairs. A warehouse? And then once you have a warehouse, how are you going to ship 10K pairs to customers? So let's explore these options. The first option is you do everything yourself. You pay for a warehouse and you ship everything yourself. So in this example, we're going to assume we don't have a warehouse. Everything just comes to our retail store and we ship things out of there. But since we're not going to be operating out of there, and since it won't fit 10K sneakers, we need a warehouse. So the main question is, how much warehouse space do you need to store 10K sneakers? The answer may be different. If you're only getting 2,000 pairs, then maybe, your mom's basement works. But we got 10,000 pairs. And so an average sneaker box, at least a size 12 sneaker box, is like 14 inches by 9.5 by 5 inches height. So I went to this pallet calculator site to figure this all out. I really am on like the forklift driver internet now. So there I learned that a standard pallet is 48 inches by 40 inches. So on this calculator site, I just entered the dimensions of our box. I didn't account for, an extra box and stuff like that. I know normally shoes are stuffed in a boxes of 6. Shout out to Marcus Jordan showing us how those shoes are packed from Memphis. But to keep it simple, I just entered that sneaker size box that I said. So on that pallet calculator site, it said that you can put 4x3, 12 pairs of 1 high. So if you could stack 5 high, that's 60 pairs per pallet. Using that math, 10K pairs means you need 167 pallets of sneakers. So then I went to a warehouse calculator site. I told you I really am in the truck driver internet here. I entered the dimensions of a pallet of 5 high, holding 60 pairs. And then the first question on that site was, can these pallets be stacked on top of each other? And so if the answer is no, well then everything's got to be on the ground. And so you're going to need a lot more warehouse space. So using the calculations and the numbers that I entered, it said you would need about 2,800 square feet if you can't stack everything on top of each other. If you can stack two, you have a size 13 friend who can drive over his forklift, you would only need half that. You would need like 1,400 square feet and then 3, and if there's shelves and all that kind of stuff. So honestly, the details doesn't matter. It really kind of just tells us how much we need, from 1,400 to 2,800 square feet. So I looked up how much does it cost per square feet to have a warehouse. And this kind of depends on your city. So it might be as cheap as $1 a square foot, all the way up to $2 per square foot, plus utilities and all that kind of stuff. It might be cheaper if you know a guy. It might be cheaper if it's a shittier area, whatever it is. So let's say we round up to 3,000 square feet. And since we're in the San Francisco area, it's probably going to be closer to $2 a square foot. That's $6,000 per month. And then how many months do you need this warehouse for? You'll probably need the sneakers maybe 2 months before to do your photo shoots and stuff. Let's just assume you're getting them all at once. So maybe you need them all 2 months before the release, and then you'll probably need them for a month after the release to ship all the pairs. That's 3 months. That's $18,000 just for warehouse space for 10,000 sneakers. So the next question is shipping. How are you going to ship all those sneakers? Say you can use that warehouse space. You got a little extra room. You can set up some tables there. That's where you and your employees can just go to work and start shipping them. Some costs here, of course, you're going to need tape. You're going to need a label maker. You're probably going to need a computer that's connected to your system that can print the labels and all that kind of stuff. You're going to need the boxes, of course. But the bigger question is, who's going to do all that shipping? Remember in our example, we have 5 employees, and because we have a retail space, they all can't be doing the shipping. If everyone's in your warehouse, that who's watching the sob factory? So someone's got to work in the store, and the rest got to be there with you shipping. And remember, we said no in-store pickup. So all pairs will be shipped, even the in-store raffle wins. So the question is, how many people do you need to ship 10,000 pairs, and how long will it take? So again, let's get into calculator mode. I'm sorry, I'm doing more forklift driver math here. Say it takes 2 minutes to pack and ship a single pair in a shipping box. That includes the times it takes to take a flat box, fold it up, tape it up, pull up an order, print the label, grab the right size sneaker, put it in the box, tape it up, slap the label on, put it on a pile. Say you have that down to a science and it's 2 minutes. It's probably much longer than that. It's probably 3 minutes, but let's just say 2 minutes. That means one person can do 30 per hour. And so if each employee is only working 7 hours a day, with an hour break and all that kind of stuff, 30 per hour times 7 hours equals 210 pairs per day per employee. So if you have 3 employees doing it, that's 630 pairs a day. It would take you around 16 business days to ship all those pairs. And this is exactly why stores like Union and Alma Manier and even Born and Raised said that shipping is going to take 2 to 3 weeks, because if you only have a few employees and you have a ton of pairs and 2 minutes per shoe, that's how long it's going to take. If you have 5 people doing it, the math works out to about 1,000 pairs a day, which is like 9 days, business days. It's still quite a bit for 10,000 pairs. So the big question is, do you have the people to come in and help you do this? Can you trust these people? Are you going to hire some guy off the street? Can you hire friends and family and other people to help you out? Or can you just outsource this to someone else to do all of this for you? So let's explore that option. So there's companies that do all that for you. They're called third-party logistics, 3PL for short. You might know some of their names like Bergen Logistics and that Kith and others use. 1661 Inc. is another one, which I've talked about before. So I don't know everything that they offer. They could offer a full-on menu. I didn't want to talk to anyone from there and ask for a quote or anything like that. But let's just assume that they store and ship all the sneakers for you. You don't have to do any manual labor. You don't have to hire any temp people. And then this company works with your back end. They get all the orders somehow. I assume they have some sort of import plugin with your point of sale system, and that's how it can print the labels and upload the shipping and all that kind of stuff. They coordinate all the shipments with the shipping companies and arrange for pickup. The other assumption I'm going to make is you tell Nike to ship to this 3PL because you don't have a warehouse. So Nike's going to ship all 10K pairs to this third-party logistics company. So it's great. They do all the work for you. How much does it cost? Probably a lot. I'm assuming it's way more than the 18K it costs for a warehouse. I don't really know, but you're paying for a premium service. It's going to cost a premium price. I was wondering, how does actually backdooring work with a third-party logistic company? If you're asking Nike to send everything to a third-party logistics company for you, but then in our case, we need 2,000 of those pairs for ourselves, you can't just tell Nike, hey, ship me 2,000 pairs and ship the 8,000 over here. That's not going to work out. So I assume they would all go to this 3PL company, and then you would have to tell the 3PL company to ship you 2,000 pairs. That's assuming you can't just drive there in a U-Haul truck and drive away with them yourself. And this is where 1661 Inc. that I mentioned is unique in a 3PL, that they offer services that other 3PLs can't do because 1661 Inc. is the parent company of Goat app. So that is one logistics company that they can say, hey, we can backdoor this shit all for you. We can just put it right on our Goat app and it's all listed right there. You don't have to associate with these bulk resellers and all that kind of stuff. We'll just do it all for you. And then here's the cut. Here's the price we'll set on the Goat app. And here's what it costs per sneaker on the warehouse side. You don't have to worry about it. We take care of it all for you, which is enticing, especially if you're Jound or someone else and it's small to medium and you don't have to get your hands dirty at all. This place just does it for you. So I can see why companies go with them for 3PL. And no matter what, even if you use a 3PL, shipping still takes time. If you hire 3 people or this company hires 3 people or 5 people to do it, the same math still works out for taping up a box and putting it in there. A robot's not going to do that for you. A robot can't do that yet. But this is why I mentioned that that's why this stuff still takes 2 to 3 weeks. And this is also why you get charged a flat rate shipping of $20 or $25, because even if the UPS label behind the shipping that's actually coming to you is $11, the rest of the money covers all this stuff that I'm talking about, this logistics section. It covers either the 3PL or the warehouse space or the cousin you hired to help you out. As sneakerheads, we see expensive shipping and we think of 2 things. It's going to be prepared really quickly, and then the shipping to me is going to be express like overnight. But that's not what happens at all. Instead, it takes 2 to 3 weeks, and oftentimes it's a USPS at the end of that. And the store can say whatever they want in their emails in big red letters that shipping will be 2 to 3 weeks afterwards, but people won't read it, people won't see it, so they'll still get the customer service emails like, when am I getting my shoes? So we got a decision to make. What are we going to do? Are we going to do 3PL and give them a cut, or are we going to warehouse this shit and hire our cousin and ship it all ourselves? Fuck it, we'll do it ourselves. We're going to hire our nephew. You're going to call up your size 13 forklift friend. He's going to tell you all about logistics and warehouses. You're going to ship it all yourself. You'll save money. It'll probably take 2 to 3 weeks, but that is already the established pattern thanks to Union and Alma Manier. So customers will already be familiar with it. So we're going to do it all ourselves and keep more of that money for ourselves. So on our timeline, say we're ready for the pairs to ship from Memphis to your warehouse. And when the shipments arrive, the first question I was thinking about is, did all the pairs arrive? Are there any missing pairs? Did you get 10,000 pairs? Have any shipments been lost or stolen or fallen off the truck from Memphis to you? Have any pairs shown up on someone's Twitter as a flex in the in-between time when you're waiting for these pairs to arrive? If you're missing a whole bunch, then you gotta start the process, get your money back. You gotta pay the wholesale price for those sneakers, so someone should pay for them. Is it gonna be UPS? You gotta become a detective all of a sudden. But sort of related, once you have the pairs in hand, that's when you can start backdooring. I'm assuming as a retailer of 25 years, you've already done some backdooring or know someone who does bulk reselling, bulk buying, or know someone who knows someone. Then you got to get into this world. How are you going to offload 2,000 pairs? Are they going to come to your warehouse? Do you trust them to come to your warehouse? Or are you going to ship to them? Or is there going to be a middleman? some person in between, but then you got to give them a cut. Are they going to pay you in cash? Are they going to wire it to you? Whatever money that they're giving you, you're going to use that to pay for that warehouse, pay for your cousin, pay for every other bill that you have, pay for the security, the photographer, the videographer, the e-commerce consultants, the PR company that you hired to get those high snobiety features, the copywriters, and the extra customer service that you had to hire on. All these vendors that are asking for payments, if you've already paid some of them upfront a bit and they're waiting for the rest of their invoices, this backdoor money can at least start paying some of those bills. So when it's time to actually do the drop, this part, I'm just going to give some thoughts on each process. For in-store raffle, you got to basically handle the line. You got to keep an eye out. You got to make sure you don't get evicted. You got to be friendly with your neighbors, manage security. But overall, you also got to be like shaking hands and greeting people. Everything I said in part 1, doing the brand theater, telling people about yourself, and remember the why of what this sneaker drop is really supposed to be about. And because he said the raffle's only one day, that's at least, one and done, so it's a little bit easier. The friends and family VIP drop that I said, like all the work you got to do is up front, selecting those people, giving them a site, emailing it out, and then after that, it's very unlikely anything goes wrong because all those people are going to be happy as hell to get an email and early access and will check out and they won't give you any problems. And then for the online drop, I had said for this example that we're going to do a bot protected Shopify drop just because it's a little bit more interesting than saying we're going to drop it all online and not care, or we're just going to do a raffle. So for the online drop, you're going to be working with someone on Shopify, whoever your customer rep is. They're going to help you configure the site or the domain change and all that kind of stuff. You're most likely just going to have 2 different sites. The other thing you have to plan for with these online drops are you got to plan for complaints and IG comments. How are you going to engage with the community? Or are you not going to engage? That's another option because most of the time people pick that option. They don't engage. It's easier to say nothing than to reply to every comment. And remember, we're only dropping 3,200 pairs online. There's not going to be enough pairs for all the demand. There's going to be complaints no matter what. So when it comes to the actual drop, the most important question is, did it sell out? And then the second most important question is, did it go smooth? If it went well, like I said, people are still going to be complaining. I couldn't draw a box around the cat. You should have did it like how Union did it or whoever did it. They did it right. They might also have had 5 times the stock and dropped 50,000 online when you only dropped 3,200 online. Or people just always assume botters take everything these days, and botters play along and spread misinformation as well. You might see some faked screenshots, or there might be real screenshots. Maybe bots did cook. So I guess you can ask your Shopify rep how many bots hit, and they might tell you not very many. Meanwhile, social media is saying bots cleaned the site up. So what they tell you, you probably don't want to say that publicly. It's better to say nothing, like I said. And you can go through the orders. Are there duplicate orders? Are there ones with the same email address? Whatever filters there are, you can go through all that kind of stuff and start canceling orders. And then when you cancel orders, do you want that item to restock right away? Or do you want to save them all later for a later online drop, or maybe just save it for your in-store? Most of the time, people just select the default option of restocking it right after you cancel, and then some other bot takes it, and then you just live with it. If the drop didn't go well, same thing. You're going to be dealing with people complaining, a lot more people complaining. Something fucked up. No one could check out or the bots cooked, whatever. You're going to get the blame. But in my personal opinion, you can essentially blame Shopify. They're the best in class product that you're paid for. Blame them. You didn't do anything. You're just sitting here in a warehouse getting ready to ship. So obviously, publicly, you're not going to blame them. They're supposed to be your partner. So you're going to be the one who has to put up a generic apology post up there that said something went wrong. We tried our best, all that kind of stuff, whatever you want to say. No matter what, people are going to be angry at even that. And then the question is going to be, do you want to refund everyone and do another drop? And this is the key point. That's why I said the most important question is, did it sell out? Really what I was saying is that money in your bank account? I know it takes whatever, a day or 2 to actually get to your bank account, but if everything's sold out, that is awesome. Your product sold out. You are getting money. You are getting paid. Are you then going to go to the bank, take that money out and start handing it back out to the people just so that they can give it back to you in a more fair order? Remember, you got to pay Nike $650K, and you got to pay all the photography and models and everything else that I mentioned. So no, most of the time you're going to keep that money in your bank account. It's my money now. It's not their money. They gave it to me. But did you do enough for fairness? Basically, I made 80% of it available for the public. The other percent paid for it to all happen. And then I paid for best in class product service. I paid my cousin to help me out. I was in stores shaking hands, kissing babies. So if you care and you want people to know you care, you're going to be genuine and you're going to be open about it that, I really care about this. Or if you care about fairness, but you don't care if people know that you did all this, then you're going to say and do nothing. If you don't care what people think and you want to tell them that you don't care what they think, no one does that. That's just being an asshole. No one's going to say, hey, take it up with consumer affairs, buddy. That's going to be bad for business. And finally, if you don't care, but you want people to know that you care, well, then it's time to do some theatrics and go pretend, go act. Most of the time, it'll work really well. Hey, we tried really hard. Sorry we didn't have enough pairs for everyone. If we could, we would give you all the pairs. But really, deep down inside, you're like, I don't give a fuck what they think. I got the money. Sorry if all that was confusing, but basically picture a quadrant of fairness versus caring. Fill in each quadrant, and that's what you got. Because overall, your goal was to sell it through, was to pay bills, was to keep the profit. And then most of all, while you're doing all that, get your brand over, get people to know who you are. And of course, secondary to all of this is the actual sneaker. Get them to like the sneaker and enjoy the sneaker and to think about you and your brand when they are enjoying that sneaker. I'm going to wrap this up, but post-release, of course, you're going to worry about the fulfillment, the shipping part. You're going to have to monitor online social media reactions, prepare an apology if something didn't go right. Customer service is going to be a big thing. People are going to be requesting address change, or they're going to be asking for an invoice. It's for my son. He wears size 13. He just got his forklift driving job. Or they can be like, hey, I was charged. I didn't get an email. Or when are you shipping? When will it ship? I need you to ship. So all this stuff I'm not going to cover in any detail. Of course, you got to pay all your bills, your $650K to Nike, your employees, your vendors, your taxes, your pay off your line of credit, and whatever money's left over is your profit, I guess. But overall, my goal with this was to show that this is a ton of work. There's so many scenarios that come up that not one person can handle or even possibly know everything. Like, do you understand how Cloudflare works and why you need it? And also how to do like sound editing on a video shoot? Or do you know how to make a TikTok video for your sneaker? And also how many sneakers fit on a pallet in a warehouse? So it's really not possible for one person to know everything. And also, even if you are trying to make everything fair and perfect and just right, that mistakes will be made, especially if you don't have reps, if you've never done this before. And compromises will be made and things like backdooring happen just to pay bills, just to support the people around you. And the other thing I wanted to show is that if you're a small to medium collaborator, 10K pairs is most likely way too many pairs for you to handle. This is why some collabs get like 1,000 pairs. And what if instead of a hype Dunk SB that is guaranteed to move, we got like a New Balance 1906R or like a Field General? Then maybe you wouldn't want 10K pair of those. You'd be like, fuck it, give me 500 of those. The scarier scenario is like, what if it doesn't sell out? What if it is a brick? Then what do you do? Do you pull stock? You still want to make it appear as if it's sold out? And then what do you got to do with the pairs? Are you stuck with them? And what's Nike going to say? You can't exactly return it to them. They're going to be like, oh, it bricked? Too bad. Fuck you, baby. So that is a big, huge other hassle of what could happen if the hype in the story or the silhouette, something is not there that the market told you that they don't want it. So this is why only bigger collaborators with more experience like Kith or Concepts or Supremes, and even Joe Freshgoods can handle these kind of silhouettes and these kind of numbers. And if you're larger like those teams, it's like, I have to build a team around this. I have to have full-time people to help me with this. And I have to scale this out at a proper level. But at the same time, you have to stay true to your purpose, your why. Everything I said in part 1. Why are you trying to sell these sneakers? Why should people care about you? What are the stories you're telling with one sneaker? And like I said, it might be easy to come up with one sneaker idea, especially if you're one and done. But trying to come up with 9 or 10 sneaker ideas, it's going to be a lot harder. And if you are successful at this one drop, congrats, you get to take all that money and profit that you made and roll it over into the next one. And if you're just one and done, congrats, the wedding was a success. Go on your honeymoon. That's it for the show. I hope you enjoyed. We'll have a part 3 where I talk to my friend Corey Whatever of Whatever Industries, who does a lot of this kind of e-commerce consulting with merchants and has a lot of experience with sneaker drops. And so we'll ask him what I got right, what I got wrong, what are his thoughts on drops, what are his thoughts on botters, and anything else that we can think of. So stay tuned for that. Thank you for listening to the show and your continued support of me. You can buy The Game is the Game Black Yellow Sock Jig socks on shop.sockjig.com right now. Please go support. And finally, you can also go fuck yourself.